the Planning and Heritage Committee meeting for Tuesday, April the 1st. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of conflict?
No.
Deputy Mary Yankoff is joining us online today, so I'll take over for her today to chair this meeting. Could I have someone approve our agenda for today?
I'll move it.
Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Beck,
Just want to add something.
when we get to 7.
Introduction of new business. You don't want to bring that up under approval agenda?
You're wanting to add it for today?
Yeah, a couple of items.
Okay, well, what is it? Are the staff able to address those
No,
today?
it's really just if we can get some update on our STR properties. In terms of applications, where we're at, because the season is ready to begin. And the second is just some follow-up on recent decisions made by City Council, i.e. the issue regarding the Department of Planning, Development and Heritage recommending to Planning Board recommending to City Council that the use of 15 Park Street is not permissible because of what was outlined in the resolution. I think there's still some unclarity, there's some misunderstanding about that process, and I just wanted to get it on the public record. So I don't know if you can address it today, but I'd like to get some information.
We just started the recording. Could you repeat that one last? We're live with the audio, and just a quick sentence on what you said.
It's really just an update from, just requesting an update from our meeting the last week regarding this issue of 15 Park Street. It's just, it's not, how can I put it? There's a misunderstanding out there in the public that it was just a political decision, but we had a recommendation from our professional planners that outlined 3 areas: visual plan, Eastern Gateway Master Plan, zoning development bylaw, that this was not a permissible use for these 2 uses. And as David Gundrum said, we're not talking about the user, we're talking about the use.
Would this be something maybe we try to just give them an opportunity and then we bring this to council for full discussion rather than committee, or should this be something that we have at committee?
I just wanted to bring it up
The
now.
chair's not in present, I mean, I don't know if it's something we wanna talk about today.
It's not about talk about, I'm just asking for clarity from our professional staff. We have our professional planners here that looked at this issue.
Okay.
And they made a professional decision. This use is not applicable for these 2 uses. Temporary emergency shelter and the Provincial Community Outreach Wellness Center. It's not permissible. And I think that there's a misunderstanding out in the community that council just made this decision. No, council made the decision based on the expert professional advice from our planners that this is not permissible. That's all I wanted to get on the public record, Madam Chair, because I've been fielding phone calls since this decision, and I think you just saw today, maybe you didn't receive the emails, but we did, two members of our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee have resigned, in part because of our decision. But our decision was based on the expertise, education, their work background, and also their experience in this field. It just was not acceptable use, permissible use. So
And are you looking maybe for a clearer explanation on land use, what was being asked and what, like a clear breakdown?
No, not asking that. I'm just, again, we have both Donna and the team from Planning, Development and Heritage that can be very clear that we looked at it, went through it, the use that they were asking for was not acceptable.
So I can maybe speak to that a little bit. So just for clarity, anytime a planning application does go forward, council has no say over the recommendation that comes forward from staff. Staff operate completely separate from the governance body being council. And so in this case, the development planning team evaluated the application based on land use principles and planning practices and determined that they were not comfortable recommending that those uses continue on that site permanently. And again, separately and apart from the bureaucratic piece of that decision-making, council makes a decision as a governance board.
Claire?
I feel clear, but do you want more clarity on what Director
I'll just
Roos?
defer to Councillor.
I don't think there was any there was no lack of clarity on my part. The professional staff did what the professional staff is tasked to do. They worked and thoroughly looked at our official plan, our zoning and development bylaw. They looked at the areas where it's congruent with that and where it's incongruent with that.
Yeah.
And they made a recommendation, and it was up to us to decide whether we agreed with that recommendation or not. And
Right.
I think through the combination of the work the planning department did, through the couple that with the public consultations that were done, I think council was given more than enough information to make the decision that we did. So I think our processes were followed, and we did what's outlined as what we were tasked to do. The professional staff did their job, and in this particular instance, council agreed with them.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a whole lot, I don't see any lack of clarity.
And Councillor Beck, I agree with you. But fielding these calls one after another, and I'm explaining it very clearly. Now, with the professional staff here, I think the directors made it quite clear. This was a professional planner's decision that this use does not apply to this property at 15 Park Street. Correct, Michael?
Planning staff recommendation,
That's right. Planning's, or.
that was their recommendation.
That was their recommendation. And if I could just add, if we were to turn that down and it was appealed to IRAC, if we didn't give, as council members, reasons that are based on principles of planning and development, it could be easily overturned.
Yeah, generally, the appeals board typically looks for rationale from council if they're opposing the recommendation from planning staff and or the planning board.
Right. Anyways, I just wanted to put that out there because after receiving some emails today about members on our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, I just said, look, there's what's going on here? This decision made by council was based on the expert opinion and research and experience of our staff, and I have full confidence in it.
I think you did a really good job, your worship, trying to express that on your interviews and to get that messaging out. And I think what's happening is there's a lot of mixed messaging happening through media and through other areas. So
Right.
what's happening is people are thinking that there's more to the land use.
Right.
It became more, again, not about the social issue attached to the land use, where we had to really try to focus and zone in on the land use perspective,
Right.
which is separate from what the vulnerable people and, there's a whole bigger issue here.
Yeah.
But for us, that particular vote was based on land use. And
It was
it's,
also based on community impact as well too.
absolutely, but
From all members of the community.
absolutely.
So that had to be taken into consideration as part of the
Right.
discussion.
But if you watched the news last night, you saw that there was different perspectives
And
being
again,
put out.
that showed.
Interviews and stuff, which is
That showed lack
confusing
of
our
knowledge of what
public.
we're gaining from our professional planners, is that this was a sound decision that was backed up by your experience and your educational background. I have full confidence in it, and don't get me wrong, if I'm trying to wiggle something out of this, I'm not. But I can tell you, and Michael was at some of these meetings that was referred to in the House, we did not guarantee any outcome on the decision process that took place through our Department of Planning, Development and Heritage. I cannot guarantee anything that professional planners are going to come with to council. That's why we pay the good money to get your advice, and we did get it. So when someone says, well, we thought this is where they were going with it, I'm not a planner. I taught for 30 years. I don't know, all I know about planning is what I do on council. In terms of principles, ethics and so forth, that's where you guys come in. So I just, again, Madam Chair, I appreciate that you allowed this opportunity, but it's gonna be, continues, residents continue to point the finger back to us. You made a bad decision, and we made a good decision based on the information that was given to us by our planning staff. Thank you.
Did you have something, Mike?
Well, and just on that, to clarify, staff on any application can guarantee an outcome to an applicant. Our role is really to advise and guide the applicant in making their application to the department, and through that process, if there's additional steps required through planning board and council. So that's, again, really our role in this entire development process, and the role that we played through that file as well.
Really, it was a good discussion, but we will probably get back to the agenda. I'm sure there might be need for further full council discussion at some point. Sorry, Donna, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add, based on the resignations that your worship spoke about, that a formal response will be sent back to the chair who
Yes.
resigned, as well as the member who resigned from the
Rebecca
committee.
Cobb, yes. And
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just one last point. She made reference, one of the emails made reference to the community fridge. Again, that was a professional decision that came from the Department of Planning, Development and Heritage that said, for this use on this parking lot, it's not permissible. Again, they're trying to make politics of it. This was not a political response. It was a response that was given to us by your recommendation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, did you want to say anything at this point, or are you good to move on?
No, I think everything that needed to be said was said. And Donna and I did speak today in reference to the two resignations, and she is planning to formalize a response for His Worship and myself to respond back and just outlining the terms of reference, et cetera, that is set forward for that advisory board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on with the approval of the agenda. We have someone to move it and second it by Councillor Beck. Someone to adopt our minutes from our meeting on Tuesday, March 4th, moved by His Worship, second by Councillor Beck. Any business arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. We'll move right into today's report and discussion, which is the work plan to update the COVID-19 temporary patio program bylaw. Donna?
Yeah, I'm just gonna start off, thank you, Madam Chair, and then Sebastian will get into it. So sometime in 2023, there was a matrix that was presented to the committee and also forwarded to council to update council on some activities that the policy and heritage arm of the planning and heritage department will be undertaking. And the update of the policy of the patio, bylaw is one of those initiatives. So today Sebastian is going to be outlining how we're going to do that and the timeline within which we intend to do that. So I'll just pass it over to Sebastian.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, today's report is to inform the committee of the steps that the Policy and Heritage Department will be taking to update the COVID-19 temporary patio bylaw to improve clarity, enforceability, and overall effectiveness to meet the needs of the community. The COVID-19 temporary patio program bylaw was adopted June 12, 2020, amended March 18, 2021, and further amended June 12, 2023. The COVID-19 temporary patio bylaw program is currently administered through Protective and Emergency Services. It is anticipated that the updated bylaw will be administered by the Planning and Heritage Department, who will review and approve all applications for patio permits. This bylaw shall now be administered by Planning and Heritage Department, instead of the licensing inspector. Compliance with and enforcement of the updated bylaw will be carried out by the bylaw enforcement officer. The name of the bylaw will be updated, removing COVID-19. The recommended update process will help to eliminate any ambiguity within the bylaw, including but not limited to the following areas: specifying the active period of operation for the patio season, reviewing the fee structure, clearly stating what activities should not be carried out in the patio area, and updating the list of definitions. The work plan, if we were to start with week 1 to 2, we'll carry out an initial research, a jurisdictional scan to see what other jurisdictions have done with their bylaw. Week 3 to 4,
Has this been done, like, so we're 3 weeks behind?
Yeah,
Has this
we-
been done?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like, that part is actually
Yeah, so the
done.
March 10th to
Yeah,
21st
that's
is
done.
still, okay.
yes.
Mhm.
Week 3 to 4, we'll do an internal circulation to have internal staff give their comments. Week 5 to 8, we'll have a review by the committees. We'll be presenting to the Planning and Heritage Committee an amended or proposed amendments to the bylaw. After which we'll move to public consultation, weeks 9 to 11. And at this point, we'll try to get the opinions of those persons intimately involved and directly affected, those stakeholders. Week 12 to 13, we'll move that amended bylaw up to senior management for review. Following which, in week 13 to 17, we'll have legal review by the city solicitor. Following that review, if there are any amendments to be made, that will be done. And in week 17 to 22, we will move to council approval and finalization. Once we get council's endorsement, we will move to implementation of the bylaw in week 23 to 25. And based on this work plan, staff is recommending that the Planning and Heritage Committee considers our recommendation to use this process outlined in the work plan to update the bylaw and share the report and attachment with council for information purposes.
Okay.
Uh,
Are there any questions?
I have just one thing.
Yeah.
Part of what we've established through our priority bylaw reviews was the opportunity to get currently what we're doing with like our procedural bylaw, where we've had some first whacks at the bylaw, if you will. It's been sent out to committee or to council, because we're ultimately going to be approving the bylaw at the end, right?
Yes.
So in terms of seeking that feedback from council, I'm wondering if in week 12 to 13, that June 2nd to 13th period,
Yes.
if when it's being reviewed for circulation following the public consultation, can council get a look at it then, similar to what we're doing right now? Like, we have our procedural bylaw, which has to be, feedback has to be in by Friday, April 4th. So if senior management is looking at, after everything has come through and they've looked at it and kind of had a bunch of eyes on it, then I think I would like to see at that same time, if we could have council
And that
looking
review.
at it at the same time.
Certainly, yes.
Sue?
Are you chairing or is it?
Go ahead, thank you.
Madam Chair, just through to the councillor, I'm just wondering, I appreciate the level of detail. This is really helpful and is probably a really great template to use in some of the other work as well. I'm just wondering about the legal review maybe coming ahead of the review by everybody else, because legal might see something that none of us saw, because they're looking at it through a very different lens. So I'm thinking maybe our solicitors should be looking at it before we all throw our 2 cents worth in, because there could be something there.
Save a lot of time.
Yeah, I
If
think
there's
so,
something.
because you'll want to see it again if legal makes any substantive changes.
So week 12, 13 is legal, and then week 13 to 17 is senior management review? Just flip those two
I'm
two
just
blocks
putting
around?
that out there as a,
No, it's
maybe
not
a
a, it's not a,
preferred process, because sometimes stuff ends up with our legal counsel for a while just because they have so many things on their plate. So the other thing that we'd have to contemplate is that enough time for them to do a review of something? Lots of times 1 week turnaround on legal is also hard.
So through to the acting CEO. So the legal team will be looking on this throughout. They already have eyes on it in
Okay.
terms of the existing bylaw.
Okay.
So we will be following through on that. And if the committee members would remember when we did the last bylaw update, which was the summary proceedings bylaw, we had a number of instances where legal had to be here at the committee to go through a number of stuff. So that would be the same process that we would follow. While it's not outlined here in terms of the process flow, it's something that we are aware of, and we will adopt the same process that we use for that one, for this one. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, I know you will have a few comments you'd like to make.
Yeah, so during COVID-19, Planning and Heritage had what we're talking about, the COVID-19 patio bylaw. But this was referring to patios that were on privately owned property. These were not in the public right-of-way. Public right-of-way patio bylaw still fell under protective services. So I'm just wondering, the discussions we had with Melanie, who was spearheading the whole bylaw changes to the bylaws that council outlined as priority, was that the patio bylaw, the existing patio bylaw and the COVID-19 were going to be amalgamated into one, and they would fall under planning and heritage. And unless I'm missing something, as I'm calling in virtually, I'm not hearing anything about the existing bylaw. That is the non-COVID-19 one that is dealing with the cities parking spots and cities right away.
Does that fall to police or did that fall to Public Works, Deputy Mayor? I thought it was Public
It
Works.
was a combination. It was Public Works, but then people would apply through the police, and the resolution would come in through the police, through the bylaw enforcement officer. So it was a little bit of a combination.
I agree with you, it needs to be all under one space, but go ahead.
Yes.
And we did all agree in our initial discussion on this. So I just want to make sure that we haven't gone sideways on that part of the plan.
Yeah, so through the chair, the intent here is exactly that, to bring the two pieces together and have the licensing done through the Planning and Heritage Department, which is a little more accessible. Additionally, we want to look at streamlining the process so that these aren't having to necessarily go to council for approvals, so that we can be a little more responsive to the business community throughout the city of Charlottetown.
Perfect. Are there any other questions?
So, Madam Chair, as you remember, and so does the deputy, when COVID hit, we just opened the floodgates. Patios exist because business owners weren't required more space, especially outside, to provide that 6-foot separation. And I think we're up to 19. So with this outline here, what happens to those 19 from last year? will they come into operation this year while we're going through this, or what happens? Could I ask? question
So,
first?
through the chair to your worship, so what happened was that the last time they did the approvals for that, they are approved for 2 years. So they will be in operation legally until October of this year.
So all of
next
them,
year,
are all of them
yeah.
under that 2 year?
Yeah, so next year would be when they would need to reapply.
And we did just approve the last one,
Yeah,
and I think that they're still kind of gonna be on the same schedule as the other property, patios. So everything should be open and starting fresh come October 2025, correct?
That's, just wanted to clarify that, because this process, any viewers may say, well, what about my license, what about this year, so that's good. So as Councillor Beck asked, March, your first, Sebastian, going up to your first set there, where is it? So week 1 and 2, March 10th and 21st. So you conducted research and best practices? You have that all listed for us, or you
Yes.
just, or is that still happening?
That has been complete.
Okay.
Right.
Could I also ask, carried out jurisdictional scan comparing other similar bylaws throughout different cities in Canada? Could I ask, how many did you look at in Atlantic Canada? Did you go as far as Ontario?
We looked at a total of 19 cities across Canada.
Okay,
Atlantic Canada, I would say at least 5.
okay.
Yeah,
And we can certainly bring back a future report detailing this in the
I'm
next step.
just trying to get some numbers here, and 5 in the Atlantic region. Okay. So, as a draft amendment that meets community needs and is within the legislative requirements. So we have that too, right, Sebastian? That's a goal.
we have a draft.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And my last question is, again, trying to stay in with those timelines. So there will be a public consultation, right?
That's our intention, yes.
So we're not gonna do that, use that 100 meter as far as the crow flies. So what are you using, 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters, or it's just gonna be an open public consultation?
I think an open consultation would be ideal for something like this.
Could I ask that we target specifically the BIA, members of the BIA?
Yes.
Because though the membership is quite involved with some of this discussion about the COVID-19 temporary patio program bylaw. And I would also ask you to extend it to the Greater Charlottetown Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah,
Just
those-
use their portals, would be great. Last but not least, we don't want to forget Heidi the Zinn at Discover Charlottetown. We should make sure that she's part of that outreach, so that we can get.
And is there gonna be anything with our parking strategy stuff that we're working on, like, this is gonna have, right, if we're already going out, we're spending
Heidi's
money on a
Discover
parking
Charlotte.
strategy, this will have to be incorporated into that, I
DCI.
suspect.
Absolutely, appreciate all the questions, to your worship. Those are kind of the major stakeholders that we've been contemplating as we've been working on this project plan. And, yeah, I mean, to your point, we wanna try and move this forward, as quickly as possible, but be comprehensive about it. So we do have existing ongoing work that will be wrapped into this as we get more information from the consulting team on the parking strategy.
Wonderful,
And
thank
just
you.
last question, Madam Chair, on page 10, legal review. I agree with the CAO, Donna, we went through this. Deputy Mayor Yankoff, Councillor McCabe, when we're looking at the summary offense ticketing. 1 year, year 1, year 2, year 3, bouncing back and forth. So this legal review has to make sure that it connects with all the other bylaws that relate to enforcement and penalties, correct?
Right.
So that is a much larger file than you think it is. Because as soon as you get legal minds into these connecting the dots, mapping, it will take time. So as Donna said, You've already started that process with Cox Palmer. Have we identified, I know Melanie's not available right now, Melanie McKenna, so have we identified a legal counsel from Cox Palmer who will be working with us side by side? Or is it just the management said that we'll be working and we'll send lawyers to help you out with it?
There's a number of team members that we typically work with. They, they work together. There's no one specific person that is typically the lead on anything that we're working on, but certainly. And again, just as far as the legal review goes, as Donna mentioned, this is kind of an ongoing thing. We'll continue to keep legal in the loop on the work as it progresses. And then we've identified a final legal review once we kind of have the entire thing framed up so that we're minimizing where possible the.
And Madam Chair, the only reason I bring this up, because with other changes that we made, again, going back to the proceedings bylaw, sometimes we had 1 or 2, 3 lawyers coming back and forth, and they had to connect the dots. I just wanna make sure just try to make this as seamless as possible, so we can, like, by October, we have something that will kick in for the 26 season, and it'll be easy to work it out, and people will be happy, and they'll be cheering in the streets and partying in the streets and saying, thank you very much, City Hall.
That's great. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go on to introduction of new business?
No, I think that's good for now, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to introduction of new business that was already introduced, that we've already pushed through, so we're not
You
gonna
just
add any.
update, not for this meeting, I'm just giving, this is a
Something you'd like for the next one, what would
update
that
on
be?
STR properties, on where we're at. The reason I mention it, I was at an event on the weekend, and someone who lives in this area said that their group have discovered that 23% of the residents that live in the 500 lots are now STRs. Yeah, that's what I said too, so I think there's,
Yeah, we'll get
again,
an update
yeah,
for
there's
the next
numbers
meeting,
out
that'll
there,
give you
Donna, and
time.
you and I have talked about this. I just wanna make sure we got real data.
Okay,
Thank you.
just to give a short update to your worship through you, Madam Chair, that so far we've issued 110 permits since the 110. And last year, across the city, last year we issued a total of 215
Across the city.
across the city.
215,
215.
215.
215. So I don't know where that percentage that your worship
Yeah.
mentioned is coming from.
I had the same reaction.
Well, that's good.
Thank
We'll
you.
get updated information as we continue into the
Thank-
tourism season.
Thank you very much.
So I need someone to move a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, thank you very much. We'll be back shortly with planning board.